The night that was erased from history. Long Beach Arena, Los Angeles, California, August 2nd, 1967, Wednesday evening, 7:47 p.m. Not one of the 1,200 people seated in that arena had any idea that what they were about to witness in the next 8 minutes would permanently change the history of martial arts. The lean man sitting quietly in the third row, wearing a dark sports jacket, had no idea either. The 6'7" giant warming up on the right side of the stage, cracking his knuckles one by one, had no idea either. Only 5 people knew what was coming, and they were not talking because they had been told not to. This story stayed buried for 40 years, removed from the records, photographs destroyed, witnesses silenced. An agreement was signed, and the agreement said the same thing to everyone who signed it. You do not speak about this, not ever. But the truth has a way of surviving. This is what really happened that night. The Long Beach Arena was the beating heart of martial arts on the American West Coast, a concrete structure, cold, cavernous, and entirely without charm. High ceilings, metal beams, gray walls, and cheap bulbs pushing down yellow light from above. No air conditioning. The August heat had settled into the building and made the air thick and close. The smell was sweat, floor polish, and stale popcorn. Folding chairs with thin cushions over metal frames. Sit in one long enough and your legs went numb. Nobody cared. You did not come to Long Beach Arena for comfort. You came because you needed to see proof of something. This was the 3rd day of the International Karate Championship. The tournament had been running since morning and had drawn together the finest martial artists the scene had to offer. Shotokan masters, Goju Ryu fighters, Taekwondo champions, Kenpo teachers, Tong Soo Do practitioners from 12 states, 9 countries, 47 different styles. All of them gathered for the same reason, each one carrying the same quiet conviction. My way is the best way. The final event of the evening was about to begin, a special guest demonstration, the newest, most discussed, and most controversial name in American martial arts, the man who called himself the Dragon, the man who called himself the voice of the future, the man from New Orleans who rejected tradition, ignored established rules, and had a talent for making everyone in the room deeply uncomfortable. Marcus the Bone Breaker Williams. He stood in the waiting area beside the stage, 2 meters tall, 118 kilograms. His shoulders were wider than a standard door frame. His arms were as thick as most men's thighs. His chest pressed hard against a black tank top. He had almost no visible neck. His head sat directly on his shoulders, like something load-bearing. But it was his hands that people noticed first and remembered longest. The knuckles had been broken and healed badly, crooked and fused together, swollen into something that no longer looked entirely like a human hand. Scars covered every joint, old wounds layered over older wounds. These were not the hands of a martial artist who trained in a dojo. These were hands that had been built by survival, shaped by years of real violence into instruments designed for one purpose only. Marcus Williams did not view martial arts as an art. He did not see it as a tradition to be honored or a philosophy to be studied. He saw it as a weapon, nothing more, nothing less. He'd grown up in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in New Orleans, and the first real lesson the world taught him came at the age of 7. The world does not care about your pain. His father was not there. His mother worked 3 jobs. The streets raised him, and the streets delivered their education in a straightforward and unambiguous way. Hit first, hit hard. Do not stop until the other person cannot get up. By the time he was 14, Marcus had been in 47 street fights. He had won 46 of them. The one he lost put him in a hospital bed for 3 weeks. Broken jaw, broken ribs, a collapsed lung. He never lost again after that. At 16, he walked into a Shotokan dojo in the French Quarter of New Orleans. The instructor, a strict Japanese man named Takashi Yamamoto, looked at this enormous teenager standing in his doorway and said plainly, "We do not train street fighters here." Marcus held his gaze. "Then teach me not to be one." Something in those words made Sensei Yamamoto stop. Perhaps it was the hunger behind them. Perhaps it was the desperation. Perhaps it was the recognition that here was a young man trying to do something genuinely difficult, trying to turn raw anger into something disciplined and controlled. He let him in. For the next 6 years, Marcus trained with a ferocity that made other students uncomfortable. 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. He absorbed everything Yamamoto could give him. Shotokan became the foundation, then came Muay Thai, then boxing, then judo, then anything and everything else he could find. But he never set aside what the streets had taught him. While other martial artists dedicated their time to kata and forms, Marcus spent his time breaking things, boards, bricks, and when the situation required it, bones. His reputation did not grow through tournaments. He had no interest in tournaments. What interested him was real confrontation, and in the underground fighting circuits of New Orleans, Houston, Memphis, and Atlanta, Marcus the Bone Breaker Williams became something close to a myth. 23 unsanctioned fights, 23 victories, 19 by knockout, 4 by the opponent choosing to stop. No defeats. He never bowed before fights. He never bowed after them. He never spoke about honor or respect or the way of the warrior. He simply fought, and the people he fought remembered it for a long time afterwards. Now, at 32 years old, after more than a decade of dismantling every man placed in front of him, Marcus had been invited to Long Beach, not to compete, to demonstrate, to show the traditional martial arts community in a setting they could not ignore what real destructive power actually looked like when it was fully committed. The arena lights dimmed slightly. The crowd noise dropped. The tournament organizer, a gray-haired man in a dark suit, stepped onto the raised platform with a microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice filled the arena from every speaker. "For our final demonstration of the evening, we have a very special guest, a fighter whose reputation has arrived well ahead of him, a man who has redefined what it means to bring traditional technique with raw, unstoppable power." The crowd leaned forward, and in the third row, the lean man in the dark sports jacket sat quietly and watched. The man who called himself the Future. Applause moved through the arena. Polite, curious, not yet sure what it was applauding. From New Orleans, Louisiana, undefeated in 23 professional fights, the man they called the Bone Breaker, Marcus Williams. The applause grew, some of it enthusiastic, some of it hesitant, the kind of clapping that happens when a crowd is not entirely sure how it feels but does not want to be caught not reacting. Marcus stepped onto the platform. The stage creaked under his weight. He moved with a quality that surprised people who were seeing him for the first time, not the fluid, water-like movement of traditional masters. Something different, controlled and predatory, the way a large animal moves when it has learned to operate in spaces built for smaller creatures. He wore black trousers and a black tank top. No shoes, no belt, no symbols of any kind. His skin carried a thin layer of sweat. The muscle beneath it was defined and dense, a body that had not been built in a gym for appearance, but shaped over years by real work and real violence, mapped in scar tissue from one end to the other. He did not smile. He did not wave. He did not acknowledge the crowd in any way. He simply stood in the center of the platform, still, centered, and waited. The organizer continued his introduction. "Mr. Williams will demonstrate the practical application of combat techniques in real situations. He will show us breaking techniques, striking power, and—" Marcus reached over and took the microphone from his hand. The organizer blinked, slightly startled, slightly offended. Marcus held the microphone and looked out at the crowd. His voice was deep and unhurried, the kind of voice that does not need volume to hold a room. "Thank you for the introduction," he said. But let me tell you why I am actually here." The arena went quiet. "I am not here to bow and scrape. I am not here to perform a kata. I am not here to break a few boards and wait for applause." He paused, letting the silence sit. "I am here because martial arts have become soft, ceremonial, safe." A murmur moved through the audience. Some people nodded, others stiffened. "You have teachers out there selling discipline and tradition and the warrior spirit, but when it comes to a real fight, most of what they are teaching you will not save you, it will not protect you, it will not work when someone genuinely intends to hurt you." His eyes moved slowly across the rows of seats. "I have been in real fights, against real people who were genuinely trying to break me, and I have learned one thing from all of it." He raised a massive fist. "Power wins. Speed matters. Technique matters. But power is what ends fights." A voice from somewhere in the crowd called out, "What about skill?" Marcus turned toward it. "Skill matters when the two people involved are evenly matched. When they are not," he shrugged, "physics wins." Another voice, "What about defense?" "The best defense," Marcus said, measured and unhurried, "is making sure your opponent cannot throw a second punch." The atmosphere in the arena shifted. This was no longer a standard closing demonstration. This was a provocation, deliberate and calculated, and Marcus Williams knew exactly what he was doing and exactly what he wanted it to produce. He set the microphone down on a small table at the edge of the platform. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck left, then right. The sound carried through the arena like wood splitting. "I am going to show you something," he said, his voice filling the space without amplification. "Real power, real technique, not the exhibition kind, the kind that actually functions when it matters." He gestured to his left. Two assistants wheeled out a heavy wooden stand. Stacked on it were 12 pine boards, each one 2 inches thick. Standard regulation breaking boards, the kind used in tournament demonstrations across the country. But these had not been arranged in the standard way. Instead of being stacked flat with spacing between them, they had been mounted vertically in a metal frame, each board fixed in place 6 inches from the next. Marcus walked over and examined the setup. He tested the stability of the frame with one hand, checking it without any particular expression. "Most demonstrations," he said, not looking at the crowd, "use boards that are either held still or stacked with gaps between them. Your hand breaks through the first one, and the momentum does the rest. It looks impressive, but it is physics, leverage, presentation." He stepped back and measured the distance between himself and the frame. "This is different. These boards are vertical. Each one absorbs the impact independently. There is no borrowed momentum from the board before it." Someone in the audience whispered loud enough to be heard, "That is impossible." Marcus heard it. He smiled, not warmly, the smile of a man who had encountered the word impossible at various points in his life and had developed a very specific relationship with it. "Watch," he said. He settled into his stance, not a traditional one, something looser, more personal, weight loaded onto his back leg, front foot light, hands up but relaxed. His breathing slowed and deepened. The arena went completely still. You could hear the electrical hum of the lights overhead, the soft creak of someone shifting in a folding chair, the faint tick of a watch somewhere in the third row. Then Marcus moved. Not fast, not slow, precisely timed. His body rotated in sequence, hips first, then torso, then shoulder, then fist, each segment handing its force to the next in a chain that ended at one point. His fist traveled in a straight line and arrived at the first board. The sound it made was not the sharp crack of a standard breaking demonstration. It was deeper than that, heavier, like a thick tree splitting from the inside. The first board exploded into pieces. His fist continued forward. The second board shattered, then the third, then the fourth, each impact carrying the same deep, heavy report. But at the fifth board, the resistance began to accumulate. By the sixth, the physics of the situation had caught up with the physics of the man. His fist stopped. 6 boards broken, 6 still standing. Marcus pulled his hand back and examined his knuckles briefly. No blood, no visible damage, just slightly reddened skin across the first 2 joints. The arena erupted. The applause was genuine this time, no hesitation in it. 1,200 people registering the same instinctive response to witnessing something they wouldn't have believed was possible 60 seconds earlier. Impressive. Undeniably, uncomfortably impressive. And the lean man in the dark sports jacket, sitting quietly in the 3rd row, watched all of it without changing his expression. The punch that rewrote everything. To Marcus Williams, the name meant nothing. He had fought in underground circuits across the South. He had no interest in West Coast martial arts politics, no familiarity with the names that circulated in California dojos, no patience for demonstrations or exhibitions of any kind. Just another name, just another small man who had convinced himself that technique could overcome the reality of size and power. Marcus had seen that belief before, many times in many men. They all held on to it until the moment they hit the floor. Bruce stepped onto the platform. He removed his jacket and handed it to someone at the edge of the stage. Underneath, he wore a plain black shirt with short sleeves. His arms were lean and defined, but bore no comparison to the mass surrounding them. His whole frame seemed almost slight standing in that space. The contrast between the 2 men was not just noticeable, it was almost absurd. Marcus stood 2 meters tall. Bruce barely reached his shoulder. Marcus weighed 117 kilograms. Bruce looked like he would struggle to reach 64. Marcus had fists larger than Bruce's face. Somewhere in the crowd, someone laughed, a short, nervous sound, uncomfortable with itself. This was not going to be a demonstration. Everyone in that arena understood that now. This was going to be a lesson, and it was going to be a hard one. Marcus looked down at him. "Are you sure, little man?" Bruce looked back up. "I am sure." "What are the rules?" Marcus asked. "You said no blocking, no dodging, just stand there and take it." "That's right." Bruce stepped closer. He took a moment to study the space between them, his eyes moving across Marcus's chest, his shoulders, his jaw, the center line of his body, taking measurements that only he could read. Marcus crossed his arms. "Whenever you're ready," he said. The arena had gone completely silent, 1,200 people holding a single collective breath. Bruce stood perfectly still, weight balanced, hands loose at his sides, his entire body carrying that quality of absolute quiet that the people who knew him recognized immediately and that everyone else consistently mistook for something far simpler than it was. Then his hand moved. No wind-up, no preparation, no signal of any kind, just an explosion, compressed into a single instant. His fist covered a meter in a fraction of a second and landed squarely in the center of Marcus Williams' chest. The sound it made was like a car door being slammed shut from the inside. Marcus's eyes went wide. His entire body lifted from the platform, not a stumble backward,